Now, it is an enormous pleasure to introduce my very great and very dear friend, Debbie Bacigalupi of Montana, the great state of Montana.
California.
Montana.
Not so great. Montana's okay too.
You must understand that I am a Brit, and therefore Montana, California, mountain districts, they all tend to blend one into the other. It's very much northern California. It's not the flaky coastal part. It's not the communist part of California. It's the libertarian part of California. And that is where Debbie's lovely father keeps an enormous ranch and spends 5/6 of his time fighting off one group of tiresome bureaucrats or another who want to interfere with his right to raise and graze his cows, get them to market and make a profit. Can we give the Bacigalupi family ranch a good round of applause? Now, the first thing to say about Debbie is that when she sees a howling injustice, she howls. And that is a great lesson to all of us, because were it not for people like her, I would now be a dying man. And let me explain. I was told 18 months ago that I had got diabetes type 2, full-blown, serious, limbs were about to drop off, I was about to go blind, woe, woe, and thrice woe. And yet, sorry, I'm being told I've got to move. And yet, what happened then was that I came across writings from people who had not believed the official government guidelines on diet. And I discovered what Debbie is going to talk to you about today, that making carbohydrate, that's sugar and bread and pasta and potatoes and rice and seeds and grains and vegetable oils, the basis of your diet, as the dietary recommendations from governments on both sides of the Atlantic recommend, is a recipe for metabolic syndrome, pre-diabetes, diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia, and death. As a result, something like 2/3 of all dollars spent on health in the United States are now spent on diabetes and its complications, when before these guidelines came in, something like only 1.5% to 2% of the population was affected at all. Within 2 years of the guidelines coming in over here, and we did it 10 years later, and within 2 years of it 10 years later, the incidence of diabetes began to increase, and that is what is happening. The government guidelines are, in my opinion, genocidal. Once I had found this out, thanks to gallant people like Debbie who had researched this and who already knew the truth, I knew nothing about nutrition before, I simply cut out nearly all carbohydrates from my diet. As a result, within 6 months, I was no more than pre-diabetic. Within another year, to their astonishment, just 2 weeks ago, without taking any of the medications, pills, potions, and such like that they tried to thrust down my gullet, I became entirely free of diabetes, and I am not even pre-diabetic. I am as healthy as the rest of you. More than that would be to trespass on Debbie's territory. She is going to tell you why what I did worked, and why, therefore, you should stand up for the humble cow and not be a vegan or a vegetarian. America was not built on rocket leaf salad. It was built on prime strip steaks. And with that, I hand you over to the wonderful, the glorious, the beautiful, the knowledgeable Miss Debbie Bacigalupi.
You are the best. He is the best. He is so funny. And oh my gosh, I just love you, Christopher. Okay, so yes, you are not a vegan and you're not a vegetarian. It's impossible in the 21st century because of all the byproducts that you use as a modern day citizen. So we're going to go into that. No, you are not a vegan. The sun is rising if you're a meat eater. We're going to talk about these truths and myths about agriculture. And as Lord Christopher Monckton told you, shared with you, I am from a cattle ranching family. I am sixth generation, as a matter of fact, so I'm not coming at this as I'm biased towards cattle, although, wow, that cow is my message. It's because I believe all people deserve the truth. And what we're being told about the new food pie, Michelle Obama came along and changed our food pie, that it's major carbohydrates, low fat, and low protein, or medium-ish protein. No, it should be high fat, medium protein, and low carbs. But that's not what you're being told in school, or at least last time I checked. Schools are trying to get you to what is called a plant-based, vegan, or vegetarian diet. Whether they say it's for health reasons or to stop man-made global warming, both are wrong. You need protein, you need meat of some sort. And no, my cows burping and farting are not causing man-made global warming. So, things we're going to talk about: global warming, and be sure to stick around for the presentations about climate change and global warming, whether it's from Lord Christopher Monckton or Willie or whoever else is teaching that in this year's Camp Constitution. You can also go back to last year's Camp Constitution on YouTube and see some of the videos that we did on man-made, so-called man-made global warming. The information is out there. Do not stop here. Own it for yourself and be proud for speaking the truth. Do farmers take most of the water? That's what the United Nations is telling the world, and so we'll talk about that. Agriculture needs fossil fuel for tractors, to preserve food in plastic containers, and to operate windmills. Are fossil fuels so bad? The answer we know is likely no. Meat makes you fat. Not true. Look at Christopher. He lost 42 pounds in the last year by increasing his meat intake and increasing his fat intake and decreasing his carbohydrate. And not dieting. Eating really good, scrumptious food, as a matter of fact. Steak 3 times a week, he wants me to let you know. What is a vegan? What is a vegetarian? And what is a plant-based diet? And why is it being pushed so much in the 21st century? First of all, let's take a look at what vegan means. Vegan, a person who does not eat or use animal products. I'm a strict vegan is a typical sentence you might hear. Using, adjective, using or containing no animal products, a vegan diet. What is a plant-based diet? A plant-based diet can be a little bit of meat, originally, historically, but in the 21st century, today, a plant-based diet, which you hear all the time. In fact, this water that I picked up the other day from Whole Foods, I just happened to look at the back, and you can't disappear. I mean, you cannot get away from this sustainability stuff. Taken from United Nations Agenda 21, Sustainable Development. Sustainability, no more plastic bottles. Our package is made with a plant-based cap. This water has a plant-based cap. And 70% renewable materials. Flow packaging is 100% recyclable. But think about it. How are your products delivered to the store? Did you get this from the so-called recycling plant from which this recycled water container came from? No, you likely showed up at a store and bought it from a store like I did in Whole Foods in Albany, New York. But they claim that all this stuff is vegan, vegetarian, and recyclable. And folks, that simply is not true. They say it's fossil-free, carbon-free. Folks, it's simply not true. The use of the phrase plant-based has changed over time, and examples can be found of the phrase plant-based diet being used to refer to vegan diets. So when you hear plant-based, just like climate change, does climate change today often just automatically say man-made global warming? I mean, when you think climate change, isn't that what you automatically think today? Man-made global warming. Is that what you think? Because I think it's assumed these days that anything climate change means that man had something to do with the climate changing. Would you agree with me? Well, same with the plant-based diet. Now they're just assuming that a plant-based diet does not include animal byproducts and is either vegan and vegetarian. Again, no animal products. It is not true. It is a lie. It is a lie. And if you say that you are a vegan or a vegetarian to save planet Earth, and you're doing it innocently because you just haven't done the research to find out otherwise, I challenge you to go research all the products you use on planet Earth to figure out if you're really living a vegan and vegetarian lifestyle. Does that make sense? And if you are pushing this theme called I'm going to save planet Earth from global warming by becoming a vegan and a vegetarian, and you know it and you've done your research, you are a hypocrite and you're wasteful. And I charge that we should be calling people out who say, oh, you know what, we need to be more humane to animals. Yes, we farmers and ranchers love our animals. If we didn't, we would not have our farms or ranches now, would we? We would fire ourselves. So, I believe it is our duty as God-loving, God-fearing people who believe in sovereignty and individual rights to call out the hypocrites and properly educate them, right? Because we have limited time. Earlier we talked about Trump getting us out of the Paris Agreement. And he hasn't. He's made the steps towards getting us out of the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement, we are out the day after the next U.S. presidential election. Al Gore and UN friends made it this way. Obama signed it because they needed one more opportunity should the United States get a conservative, constitutional-loving, anti-Paris Agreement president like we did with Trump. If we had gotten Hillary Clinton, we'd be a done deal. We'd be toast. But we have another 4 years, or another year actually, 2020, next year, to make sure that we are out of the Paris Agreement. Now, what does this have to do with the Paris Agreement? Because even in the Paris Agreement, under the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, in which make up the Paris Agreement and the 2030 Agenda and the New Urban Agenda, which we are all a part of right now, it is pushing us towards a new kind of consumerism. Behavior change is what they call it. That anything that could being the key word there, cause man-made global warming, cows farting, land use, grading a field, could be termed as what they call the precautionary principle. And if it falls under the precautionary principle, you and I cannot do these things. It's under one of their 169 targets under the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the Paris Agreement. So super uber important. In fact, we'll be talking about it more tomorrow night, so I hope you join us. Did I bring this document last year? Does anybody remember this document? The Global Biodiversity Assessment Report? It says that most of what we do as human beings is unsustainable. The Global Biodiversity Assessment, and I'll show you a really important video tomorrow night, one that I recently Alex Newman of the New American told me about, and I'm like sitting there going, how come I did not know about this video? So come tomorrow night, we're going to have two pieces of evidence to say that this is what they've been pushing. The veganism, vegetarian diet, plant-based diet is part of their agenda. And we're not making it up, so come tomorrow night as well. A plant-based diet and anthropogenic global warming, AGW. Plant-based diets may contribute to reducing greenhouse gases, they say, emissions, and the amount of land, water, and fertilizer used for agriculture, as a significant percentage of crops around the world are used to feed livestock rather than humans. Increasing the practice of a plant-based diet may contribute towards minimizing climate change and biodiversity loss. As an aside, this is their cookbook about biodiversity. 1,147 pages of human activity that is causing biodiversity loss. This contract, this agreement, was signed under George Herbert Walker Bush back in 1992, but we have been implementing it ever since. Okay, so what is agriculture? Who can tell me what agriculture is? What is agriculture? Anybody want to guess? Just throw it out. You don't have to raise your hand. You can just throw it out. Yes, ma'am. The raising of livestock. Okay. What else? What else is agriculture? Production of food. So like taking a seed and putting it into the ground and watching water grow, watering it and watching a plant grow, that is part of agriculture. What else is part of agriculture?
Well, literally, tilling the field.
Tilling the fields and all the products that come with it. And where do we see the byproducts of agriculture, like a hot dog, for example?
Everything.
At a baseball game?
At a supermarket.
At a supermarket? And how do we get the food to the supermarket? Drive it by a truck, a train. All of that is called agriculture. It is a huge industry. And this vegan, vegetarian, man-made global warming agenda will undo agriculture as we know it today. Agriculture touches every aspect of our lives, every aspect. And so as somebody who comes from the agriculture industry, you all are agriculturists. If you eat food, you are an agriculturist. And we need to protect and preserve our agriculture, because it's our freedom of choice what we put in our mouth that goes into our stomach, et cetera, et cetera. And we as agriculturists must feed the world. And I come from the state of California, and we are considered the bread basket of the nation. We could feed, literally, in my state alone of California, the world. At the top part of our state, the northern part of the state, which is where I'm from, a lot of alfalfa. Some nuts, but a lot of alfalfa for livestock. We've got some fruits, but most of the fruit comes from the central and vegetables come from central and southern California. California historically is an arid, hot, dry, some would say desert-ish climate. And so how do you grow food in heat and hot soil? Well, somehow you have to move water. So we did that in California. We had brilliant people take a desert-like landscape and move water through canals, diversions, channels. And with that, we put in dams, hydroelectric, clean, green, renewable dams, like on the Klamath, which Lord Monckton has gotten the privilege of seeing. I say that because it is, right now, as I spoke last year, the world's largest dam destruction project in worldwide history. The goal, as an aside for this project, is to destroy 4 clean, green, renewable energy dams owned by Warren Buffett and remove them. Actually, it's destroy them. You punch it. We do not have enough money to properly destroy these dams and remove all pieces. So they're going to punch these dams and send 12,500 cubic yards of sediment, it's 20 million cubic yards of sediment, which laid out flat, that's like 12,500 miles, halfway around the earth, of sediment and pollutants 187 miles downstream to save what their pet project fish, the coho salmon, which is a hatchery fish. So why are they going to try and save this fish? Because supposedly human beings are so bad to planet Earth that we've built these dams. Yes, we believe dams provide, drought control, fire suppression, irrigation, recreation, all these beneficial uses of hydroelectric dams. And we wanted to feed the world. These dams are good, and yet under this agenda called Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, in their world, dams are bad. In fact, even hydroelectric, clean, green, renewable energies dams are bad. We must move to wind and solar only in the 21st century. Unreliable, intermittent, expensive energy from great inventions like this, which do so many things. When we have a dam, we can build a storage lake behind it. What can we do in a storage lake? What do we do in lakes? Fish. What else? Swim, boat. What else can we do with stored water? Irrigate, grow food. All these amazing things. If a wildfire comes in California, by the way, last year I spoke about the wildfires in California. Hal tells me, it's gotten like 56,000 views on YouTube. And since, I'm going to give an update on Agenda 21 tomorrow night, and the most recent conference I went to, United Nations conference, and at that conference they were using California as their example of man-made climate change, anthropogenic global warming wildfires. And a year later, we are finding out that PG&E had some faulty lines, right? Somebody's trailer, a recreational trailer, got a flat, and it created some sparks on the pavement, and the CAL FIRE was slow to respond. True story. CAL FIRE was the guy called right away. CAL FIRE did not respond quick enough, and the fire got out of control. But if you go to a United Nations meeting or an Al Gore talk, it's all anthropogenic man-made global warming. Not true. Okay, so these dams provide fire control, fire suppression. The helicopters swoop in, take the water, splash it on fires. And when we have water and stored water and irrigation, we can grow grass and lots of other things, like trees, apple trees, orange trees, crops like corn. And we can also grow fish. We can plant lakes with fish. And we can have cows on the grass. And then we have bugs. And we have a whole ecosystem because man is so good to planet Earth. Why? Because we need to feed the nation. So let me tell you a fallacy that's going on out there. So let's look at California's water. We're being told, even in the United Nations documents, that farmers and ranchers are taking most of the water, especially in California. There are reports all over the place that say ranchers and farmers take over 70% of the world's water. And that simply just is not true. So if you think about it, if I were to put a cup in the middle of the room, I think I have this slide, no I don't. If I were to put a cup in the middle of the room, there's no ceiling here and it starts to rain, does all that water go in a cup? So where's most of the water landing? On the environment, right? We can only capture so much water, and the estimate is about 40% of water can we capture. And that's in storage lakes, canals, and off your roof. But the environment takes most of the water. It has to. It naturally has to, because you cannot possibly grab all the water. So when they say farmers and ranchers take 70% of the world's water, right there, flat out lie. Nature gets most of the water. And in fact, because of California's environmental laws, nature gets more than half and more than half of half. So here's how that works. Nature gets naturally 60% because we cannot capture all the water. 40% is about what we can capture. And of that 40% of the water we can capture, because of environmental laws in California, like the Endangered Species Act, consider that these are straws into this 40% capture. Nature, by law, gets 50% back. So I'm not a mathematician and I'm not brilliant, so I cannot figure out, without much sweat, to figure out how much water actually that would be percentage-wise. So 60%, so 50%, so that's 20%, so 80%, right? Am I correct? So 80% would go back to the environment. So what happens to the other 20%? Well, of that 20%, agriculture gets 40%, of that captured, and then municipalities like your street water, your house water gets 10%. So right there, it debunks the United Nations claim that farmers and ranchers who are, according to them, land hoarders, barons, people who are causing global warming through agriculture, right there it proves that they are absolutely 1,000% wrong that farmers and ranchers take 70% of the world's water. It is impossible. And our livestock need this water. And our livestock are pretty precious animals. Did you know that bumblebees are considered livestock? Bumblebees. They provide a byproduct called honey. And there's all sorts of things that you could do with honey on top of that, candles and all sorts of makeup and all sorts of other things. Did you know that right now, our federal government has written a rule that truck drivers, which is how we get most of our food and our computers and everything else that we use in modern day society, that there's a rule that you cannot, as a truck driver, drive longer than 8 or 9 hours without stopping for a 10 to 11 hour break. So let's say you're trucking bees. Bees have to be trucked at night or when the weather's really cool. They are very sensitive to heat. So you're a truck driver, you have to pull over. What do you think happens to those bees? How about cows? So as cows or livestock are being transported, you have to pull over for 8 to 10 hours, 11 hours. Are you going to offload those animals? Probably not, because the more you offload and unload those animals, the more dangerous it gets, the more stress the animals get. This is a rule that has gone through, and agriculture is right now on, they're giving us a reprieve right now. But this is the kind of stuff that's going on in our federal government. Okay, so fruits and vegetables. Do you think your fruits and vegetables want to sit on a truck for 10 to 11 more hours? This is why it's so important to be at Camp Constitution and learn the things that we're learning and what our Congress is doing. I don't think it's in the best interest, health interest of us, the fruits and vegetables, nor our animals. But because we've been so silent, we have not spoken up, this is what's happening out there. So they need water. We need water to feed the world. And so we want to protect these things. And of course, as farmers and ranchers, that's what we try and do. We try and protect our water. And we protect our animals. This is one of our cows, a little calf that we had a couple years ago. She is now a mom. And this is my nephew, Steele. And you can see this calf has a black hide on it. You see that? And you see, if you look closely, you can see that it's got a black ear. Does that look normal? Well, here's what happens. What we do as cattle ranchers is do everything we can to save these cute little animals. These animals are used for byproducts. Some of them, the cows, so a cow is a female. A steer is a male who has been castrated. And a bull is used for making baby calves with the cows. Right. So anyway, but what's going on now with the federal government and radical environmental groups is they are trying to release wolves. Canadian gray wolves all across the United States, mostly in the western United States. So already, this is our ranch. We have predators. We've got mountain lions. We've got coyotes. We've got bobcats, lynx, rattlesnakes. I already said mountain lions, bears. We've got all kinds of bears. We have critter cameras all over, cameras all over our ranch where we get to go see. It's so much fun. It's like one of my greatest joys is to go around and see what animals, what wildlife is lurking on our ranch. My dad has put in, where our ranch had no ponds, my dad has put in 13 ponds. It's 4,500 acres, 4,500 acres, and it has a river running through it, and we've got lots of diversions. And right now, the state and federal government and environmental groups are working hard to take away our water rights. They're using all kinds of endangered species. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, somebody had put a sign on our property where one of the water diversions is, where you can change the water division and the flow into other ranches, because, you know, there's other ranches below us, there's other farms below us. And so we have in California, a pretty darn good way, or we had, to control, referee who gets the water. It's first in time, first in right, junior to senior water rights, adjudicated riparian, all these things you don't need to know, except for we had a pretty good way of managing how the water would flow so that one person could not get all the water. And my parents being the first ranch, you know, if we didn't have these rules and these honest people, we could have people abusing, you know, their water usage. But anyway, so we have all these predators and we have all this wildlife because my dad loves to steward the land. It's his favorite thing to do, is to take care of the land. And like I said earlier, if we didn't take care of the land, we would fire ourselves before anybody else would. But anyway, so we have a lot of predators. And unfortunately, we have a lot of predators who like meat and livestock. And so with the onslaught of wolves across the western United States, it is head-shaking. It is a head-shaking agenda. For another time, I'll talk about the diseases that the wolves carry that can get into your home. And we're not being informed about this. We should be, because this is a health and safety issue. Your sheriff should be stopping this agenda, and many of the times they're not. So anyway, this little red calf's mom died. She was an older cow. She died. Coyotes came in the night, got her, and this little baby was left. And so we have to do everything we can to save this calf. It's only, you know, a week old. And so, and it prefers milk. And so what we did is we mixed formula until we could find a mom cow and that would take her. So lo and behold, about the same time, coyotes got another calf. And so now you have a mom without a calf and a calf without a cow. And so how do you think cows tell their calves apart? Do you think they look in the pasture and say, oh, there's my cow? And no. They moo and they smell. They've got a great sense of smell, a fabulous sense of smell. And so what we did is we took the dead calf and we took off its hide and we sewed it onto this red calf. You could see the other calf was black. In fact, it was a bull. And this is a heifer here, a baby girl. And we took the ear off of the black cow, the black bull, and sewed it to, or tagged it like you would an ear tag, to the baby calf. And so when the mom went, you know, back, she feels somebody like something grabbing at her teats, going for milk, and she goes back to smell it. What does she smell? Her baby. And so if we can do that, we do. And oftentimes, because you know what, otherwise we'd be feeding this poor little calf for 6 months, at least 3 times a day, and that is super taskly. So we do everything we can to put nature back in its place and give these cows a better way to survive than by, you know, depending on us all the time. Anyway, it is a great joy. It's so much fun. These calves, they're so cute to watch and play. It's just such a joy. So cattle are pretty amazing. And I hope if I leave you with anything today is not how dare that cow cause global warming and obesity and all these other things that people out there are trying to claim, that it's more like, wow, that cow, what an amazing animal, and it truly is. So cattle graze, they eat unwanted plants and trees. Our forests are so dense and thick. This is one of the reasons our fires are so bad, is because there's moratoriums out there on you cannot log. And there could be an owl, a spotted owl. We talked about this last year. I remember telling you about hooting, where foresters have to go in and hoot for, last year I think I said 3 hours. It's 6 hours now. And they have to sit there and hoot like a spotted owl. If they hear a spotted owl, you cannot cut down your trees. In fact, that could last for as much as up to 10 years. We have people who partner our ranch who have forests, who have, you know, timber trees that they want to cut and harvest, and they can't because of the spotted owl 10 years ago. So cattle help keep down forest fires. The manure is a fertilizer. So if you're on a vegan-based diet and there is no animal use, do you think that they can use fertilizers? Truthfully, not without being a hypocrite, but we'll just go on from there. So the nutrients from livestock is amazing, and that's why you see manure, chicken manure, steer manure in nurseries. The hooves create dents in the ground which hold water, hold a seed, and things grow from there. Attract bugs, birds. So their manure attracts bugs and birds, and as a result, an ecosystem is created. But let's get into the nutrition side of it. Cows provide, livestock, beef provides what we call ZIP. I teach ag in the classroom and to all everywhere from second to all the way through high school. And this is one of the most important slides. Zinc, iron, protein, V vitamins, vitamin D, and calcium. Strong bones, healthy teeth. 3 ounces of lean beef, which is about 154 calories, contribute less than 10% of calories to a 2,000 calorie diet, yet supplies more than 10% of the daily value for these things. Protein helps preserve and build muscle. Selenium helps protect cells from damage. B12 helps maintain brain function. Zinc helps maintain a healthy immune system. Niacin supports energy production and metabolism. B6 helps maintain brain function. Phosphorus helps build bones and teeth. Choline supports nervous system development. Iron helps your body use oxygen. And riboflavin helps convert food into fuel. So 1 serving of beef is 3 ounces. So of 3 ounces, you got all those things I just told you about. How many pieces of chicken breast do you think you would have to eat in order to get the same nutritional values that we just went through in 1 serving of beef? Anybody want to take a guess? 6. Anybody think higher? What do you think? 7 chicken breasts in order to get the same nutritional value as 3 ounces, like the palm of your hand size beef. And I don't hate chicken, I love chicken. So this is not against the chicken. But when we hear that beef makes us fat and unhealthy, it simply is not true. Let's look at protein versus calories. Lean beef, 25 grams across the board here of lean beef, tofu, black beans, peanut butter. So 25 grams across the board on protein. 3 ounces, so if you're going to get 25, here's how this table works. If you're going to get 25 grams of protein, it's 3 ounces. The size of beef is 3 ounces. So the size of your hand, and here's the caloric intake, 154 calories. For tofu, to get the same amount of proteins, you're going to have to eat 1 1/4 cup of tofu, and it's going to be almost double the calories, 236 calories. Black beans, you're going to have to eat 1.5 cups, and it's going to be 374 calories. Peanut butter, 7 tablespoons, 600 calories. So you can see just by this graph alone that not only is beef, you get less calories, but it's also a smaller amount of beef that you have to eat. All right, so as they go around saying that, we need to move to a plant-based, vegan, vegetarian diet in order to save planet Earth from global warming, and we need to move to lab meat. How many have heard of lab meat or lab-produced food? That's where we're heading. Why? Because documents like this, big global biodiversity, are saying that human beings stewarding the land is ruining the biodiversity. The bugs, the grasses, all the different things that are in God's beautiful planet. They are saying, people like Al Gore and Obama and the United Nations are saying, no, we need to limit the land use of human beings. So, who are they going to go after? Farmers and ranchers, because don't we need a lot of land in order to raise our livestock? Yes, we do if we're going to raise a lot of livestock. So, obvious question would be, okay, so Debbie, you're a cattle rancher and you think that your cows are better than, a crop of corn, and a crop of corn, how many people is it going to feed? Well, I don't know, but it's going to take a lot of land, and corn is only a one-time crop. In other words, it doesn't keep producing things. Check out a cow. You've got dairy. You've got milking cows. You've got all this incredible meat, okay? So the average 1,000-pound steer, remember that's a bull that's been neutered so that it does not produce more cows, or impregnate more cows. So you've got about 1,000-pound steer. Of that 1,000-pound steer, 440 pounds is meat. 200, about half of that is ground beef, and the other half of that 440 pounds would be your steaks, your ribeyes, your prime ribs, all of that. Okay, so how many people do you think that a 440 pounds worth of meat can feed? How many people? So let's say that it's a 1 pound serving, or a 3 ounce serving. So already 440 people can eat. And it's, the nutrition lasts. Let's talk about byproducts, and then I'll go back to the meat real quick. So what is a byproduct? Who would like to say what a byproduct is? What's a byproduct of a tree? Give me an example of a byproduct of a tree. So there's your tree. What's a byproduct? Paper. What else is a byproduct? Pencil, a desk, an apple, books, a house, a birdhouse. All those things are byproducts from, and then there's oil, there's tons more. It's amazing. And from the byproducts from cattle is even more amazing. In fact, we use over 98% of the cow for something. So you just saw 440 pounds of meat was used for something. Let me ask you this. If we go to a vegan-based diet, vegan, vegetarian, plant-based diet, and we as a society, because they're going for Meatless Mondays now, right? We know about Meatless Mondays. I think they're already pushing it in New York schools to get us to a plant-based diet. It is to nudge us away from meat and into eating a full-on 100% vegan, vegetarian diet. That is the goal, to save planet Earth, is to move us completely plant-based. So, if we know there's byproducts from cattle. We know about furniture, leather coats, all those things. Have you seen the way Lord Christopher Monckton came in with his big old leather boots and his leather jacket? So those are some examples of byproducts from cow. What do we do with that meat? If we're vegan, plant-based diet, what happens to all that meat? Do we waste it? Because it's certainly not going to be reserved for us. And this is why I charge vegans and vegetarians and those who are pushing a plant-based diet like Al Gore is as wasteful hypocrites. Wasteful hypocrites. In my search to find the truth, a friend of mine sent me this book, and it's amazing. It's called Pig 05049. This book is filled with thousands of byproducts from just a pig. Things like matches, lollipops, candy, bullets, ammo, shoes. Let's just watch this little video by the author herself and see what she had in mind for this video. Super good, by the way. She did a TED Talk that is just phenomenal. I hope you'll watch it.
Designer Christine Meindertsma rose to fame quickly with her book Pig 05049, developed in 2007. The book is an extensive collection of photographic images that catalog an astounding array of products, of which various parts of a single pig were utilized in the production process. With her designs, Christine Meinert-Smith aims to revive the understanding of production processes that have often become so distant to our modern industrialized world. For her 2003 graduation project at the Eindhoven Design Academy, Christine Meinert-Smith created One Sheep Sweaters, the intention of forging authentic relationships between the product and the consumer.
So our whole idea is if we go back to the life cycle of the products that we're using, there might be more respect for that which we use. Does that make sense? So I declare that if all the vegans and vegetarians who are out there, I say so-called vegans and vegetarians, who are out to save planet Earth from man-made anthropogenic global warming and climate change, knew that, as they protest in, for example, their canoes, their plastic canoes, or they use their smartphone to send text, to tweet about, what, we all need to be vegan and vegetarian. If they had any clue on what hypocrites they are, I dare do claim that they would, say, wow, that cow versus how dare that cow. So you probably start the day off with a shower, says Christian. So in soap, fatty acids made from boiling pork bone fat, sorry, that was hard to say. So in soap, fatty acids made from boiling pork bone fat are used as a hardening agent, but also for giving a pearl-like effect. Then if you look around in your bathroom, you see a lot more products like shampoo, conditioner, anti-wrinkle cream, body lotion, but also toothpaste. Then, before breakfast, you've already met the pig so many times. Then at breakfast, the pig that I followed, the hairs off the pig, so she wrote this book, she followed one pig throughout its life cycle, 05049. And as you can probably get from the pictures, this pig was used in many, many byproducts. Then at breakfast, the pig that I followed the hairs off of, the pig, she's European, so I'm just reading directly from what she said. Off the pig or proteins from the hairs off the pig were used as an improver of dough. Well, that's what the producer says. It's improving the dough, of course. In low-fat butter, or actually in many low-fat products, when you take the fat out, you actually take the taste and the texture out. So what they do is they put gelatin, which comes from livestock, back in order to retain its texture. We use all parts of the cow or the pig or the livestock for something. Like I said earlier, 98% of a livestock or a cow is used for something you and I use every single day. The hooves, the horns, the bones, the hide, the skin, the blood, the glands, the ears, the stomach, intestines, brain, manure, milk, fat, internal organs. They all get used in something that you and I use every single day. So as we're at Camp Constitution, are we going to have marshmallows? Did we have marshmallows last year?
I think it is.
It's livestock byproduct, but to start that fire in the match is livestock byproduct. Let's see. All these dairy, household products. What is Elmer? You see that glue? Who is Elmer?
Cow.
Elmer is a cow. So like I said last year when we went briefly through this, the clue is in the glue. Anything that sticks, sticky notes, all these sticky notes that I have on all my documents, those come from livestock byproduct. Asphalt sticks together. Livestock byproduct. Tires need to bind together to keep their shape. Livestock byproducts. All these household products. Candles, makeup, furniture, leather dog collars, Ugg boots, jackets, like Lord Monckton's leather jacket, Louis Vuitton bags, all those women carrying those fancy, and men carrying those fancy Louis Vuitton bags, they're not vegan or vegetarian. And instruments. A violin has strings. Where do we think those strings come from? Basketball, baseball, fishing. And think about all the industries as a result of all these byproducts that we have. Professional sports, orchestras. Could you imagine life without livestock? Really, could you? When it comes to travel, The lubricants in your car, again, the tires. You may have leather seats. When you shine your car with wax, livestock byproduct. The asphalt. All these things, even a smart car, is a livestock byproduct. And then if you call yourself a vegan and you're wearing your vegan shoes and you're riding a bicycle, your bicycle, the lubricants in a bicycle, the tires, if it's got leather, you're probably going to be riding on asphalt. So all these things we need, right, in the 21st century. But what do you think is the number one necessity in the 21st century? What do we all have that if we left it behind, we feel like I left my phones. That's right. Our smartphones they use fatty acid and fatty tissue for the connectivity of computer parts, TV monitors, and our smartphones. So even your smartphone, which I think we are like tied to these days, is a livestock byproduct. But most importantly, in the 21st century, we need a heart. And for those people who are pushing a vegan, vegetarian diet, because we need to save planet Earth and we need to be more humane to animals, which I'm not against that, but they're using it as one of the things to take out small farmers and ranchers. They use drones to make it look like a dead animal, like an old cow, is being abused and not taken care of. Not true. Our animals die too. They have a shelf life too. But one of the most important things is in the healthcare industry. And they use pig heart valves, to replace in people who need new heart valves in human beings. And here's a short video on that. So blood flow is restored to the heart, and the person who received this, that is a pig valve, got to live because somebody's pig, was used to save a life. Here's some more examples. Mobile phones, TVs, computers, cholesterol, and gelatin help make those parts too, besides the fat and the fatty tissue. Air filters use the hair of the livestock. Sheetrock. Behind this wall is sheetrock to help insulate the room and build the structures in the wall. Sheetrock is used from the skin of livestock. Chewing gum, fat. Shampoo is the hooves. Dyes and ink. So even, I don't know if you saw in that video early on, it showed a tattoo. Dyes and ink come from the blood of livestock. Candles, the fat, refined sugar, the bones, hormones, internal organs, and the list of products go on and on. For medical and health, the pancreas needs for human healing. People who have diabetes cannot use synthetic or fake forms of medicine. They often need the real deal, which comes straight from the livestock. The pancreas is used to help for wounds and scar healing. You may know that Nancy Pelosi uses Botox. Bone marrow helps with blood disorders. Liver treat anemia. The pituitary gland of the cow regulates blood and relieves arthritis and allergies. Intestines for medical sutures. So here's my question. Who can live without the cow? Anybody think that we can live without the cow?
And I guess the point is, without the meat, we'd still need to kill cows.
Exactly. Without the meat, we still need the parts of the cow. Do you see that? This week, you traveled to Camp Constitution 2019. What livestock byproducts do you think you used? Well, if you got here by auto, you used the lubricants, high-performance grease, antifreeze, the brake fluid made from livestock fats and proteins, including glycerol. The glue from protein is used in manufacturing automobile bodies. Car and bike tires have stearic acid from beef fat, which helps rubber hold its shape. Asphalt contains building agents, binding agents like glue from beef protein and fat. Shoes, are yours leather? Even if they're not, if they're vegan shoes, the soles of your shoes are bound by one of these glue agents that come from livestock. I thought I'd just show you some really cool vegan shoes. I'm not sure. I can only see one pair of vegan shoes that might not need asphalt to walk on. But regardless, as they tell us, our carbon footprint is mostly caused because we are meat-eating Western, our diet is heavy in meat, and we'll go into this tomorrow. In one of my global biodiversity books, I'll show you where they say that. As they try and reduce our carbon footprint and force us into a vegan diet, I hope that you're so proud to know where most of the things that you touch come from. It's really wow that cow. They are extraordinary animals, and and I think we should be more proud to have more cattle on planet Earth, not less. With less cows, you have less health and less, it's just not what the United Nations is trying to shove off to the world. And what I want to say to you young people still in school, I promise you, they're going to push more and more a vegan diet on you. In fact, your friends are going to nudge you. I promise, if it's not here, it's coming. And I just want you to be so proud of the truth that you can share with your friends, no, that's not true. Even if you want to move to a vegan, vegetarian diet, you still need livestock for all these things. And just be proud about it. Here's how I use it sometimes, just to give you a small example, and we're almost done. This year I went skiing in Montana. I'm not from Montana, even though Moncton says I'm from Montana. I'm from California, but I was speaking to a university in Montana who is being taught about the United Nations global warming in a good way and a vegan diet. And so I decided I was going to go skiing. And I wish I had captured this part on film, but I didn't. I captured it afterwards. I was on a very large ski lift with 7 children. I'm skiing by myself with 7, and there's 7 children from the state of Washington. I didn't know any of them. And so I got to talking to them, and because I know Seattle, which is where they're from, is pushing Agenda 21, the United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development in a big way. And this was my opportunity to teach. Everywhere we go, we have an opportunity to teach, whether it's in the grocery store line. You guys now in Massachusetts have a plastic bag law, is that right? What's coming next are straws, because we already have this in California. And so everywhere I go, there's an opportunity for me to properly teach people about the hypocrisy of not using plastic and man-made global warming and moving to a vegan diet. And it's so much fun. So I decided to chat up with these kids, and so I went through all of the ski gear that they had on and said, oh, did you know where that comes from? What part of the cow that comes from, or fossil fuel? And so anyway, I decided to, so I missed that whole film, but I got them at the end, and here's what I did.
I'm so proud of you guys. So you know what I have to say, wow, that cow. So do you think we could live without the cow? No. We could not, could we? How about fossil fuel? Can we live without fossil fuel? No. You guys are the best chairlift I've ever ridden with. I'm so proud of you. Yay to the Seattle kids. Yeah. Woohoo! You have to go, are you guys going to?
So it was my opportunity to share with them all the parts of the chairlift and everything that came from fossil fuels, plastic, their goggles, how they got there, their skis, all of that. They would not be there if it were not for fossil fuels, carbon, and livestock byproducts, the 3 things that the United Nations is going after and trying to reduce our consumption of and tax us on, which is everything, every product we use. So I ask you again, who can live without the cow? And let's let the sun set on this myth that cows are causing global warming and obesity. Guys, it simply is not true. So thank you very much for sitting through this. And if you have any questions, I'm just proud to answer anything you might got. Yes, sir.
One of the points that gets brought up, and I think we have a different perspective on this now, is the idea that eating grains directly, as opposed to feeding cows or some kind of livestock, the food value is, they take a lot of the food value and on a per unit basis. It's more efficient to use the grain directly than to run it through livestock.
So the question, what you're asking is, instead of using wheat, for example, for human beings, we're using it for cattle, and isn't it more efficient if we used for, or is that like
Well, yeah, it's not necessarily my...
Sure. No, that is their argument.
That's one of the points that's out there.
It is one of the points out there. And how many people think that wheat is more nutritious than 3 ounces of beef? I'm sorry, you could not live on wheat alone. You just can't. And so, it's just one of those things, that we're being told that a plant-based diet is, and there is protein in plant, but like we showed you, you're going to have to eat a lot of beans in order to get the same nutritional value than 3 ounces of beef, and it's going to be a lot more caloric. So they're not telling the whole story and nothing but the story. They're telling their diluted version, because the real goal is not our health. The real goal is to implement United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development. That is the bottom line. And so, and they've even admitted that, in this agenda that we have to, and they don't come out and directly say this, but I think, Willie, they are starting to come out and say this in bits and pieces, that the earth is overpopulated.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been saying that for years.
And so, and that children should be vaccinated because, for whatever reason, that is part of their agenda, and to move us to a plant-based diet and all these things. And it just simply is not true. And I'm not against vegans and vegetarians. Let me say that really clearly. If that's the way you want to eat, go eat that way. It does not make a difference to me. But if you start, you're protesting and you're pushing this vegan vegetarian diet in the name of saving planet Earth from man-made global warming, it's just not true. And I will fight you on that. I will fight you on that. And so, but if you're doing it because you think you like to eat that way, go for it. I have no problem with that. But do not change my family's lifestyle and what my family does because you claim that my cows are causing, planet Earth to, the destruction of planet Earth. It is not true. And I will fight you to the end on that, as we all should, because it's just simply not true. Any other questions? I just want to say thank you. I have not done that presentation in this way, and so I thank you for just being with me as I get through it. I hope to refine it and tweak it and make it really, really powerful in the future. And thank you for, for listening to all the amazing things about the pig and being my guinea pig. Yes.
All right.
I just think it's interesting that they want to grow the cows on a petri dish
Yeah.
for the people because it's too many people. They want to get rid of cows.
Right, and they're saying that's a good point. So what we're going to grow lab meat, right? So we're going to grow meat in a lab. And the reason is so that we could still have the same protein and nutritional value. But imagine all the livestock byproducts we're not going to get, right? Including, milk. And the reason they're saying is because that way we won't have to use so much land for raising beef. But I don't know, I've driven around here last year. I said this, I'm going to say this again this year. Driving here, it's like I'm going to get a whiplash. It is so pretty here. And what I find the most beautiful is when you have tons of trees. You are a carbon sink. Oh my gosh, all the trees, it's overwhelming. In fact, I would say you have too many trees. And where the beautiful landscapes that were my eyes were popping out of my head with envy. where all the farms and ranches here that are just, you take care of your land so well. It's spectacular. And I'm like looking at on my way here why it took me so long is I'm on Zillow and I'm saying, oh, I see that place is for sale. Of course, I can't afford any of them, but I'm like wishful thinking, right? That, oh my gosh, I want a place here. It's so beautiful. And it's not just beautiful because God created it. It's beautiful because man said, I'm going to steward this piece of land and make it into something. And that is what's so awesome about the United States of America, which was built on this idea of ownership. I'm going to take this piece of land and I'm going to use it and turn it into something. I'm going to make it better. I'm going to be independent off of it. Does that make sense? Anyway, so I'm just rambling on. But anyway, I just want to thank you all for going through that with me and letting me be letting you be my guinea pig. Thank you.